Being nice to everyone is killing your energy. It sounds harsh, but it's true. Not everyone deserves your time, trust, or kindness. The moment you learn to redirect your kindness, your influence skyrockets, toxic people lose power over you, and your life opens up in ways you never imagined. Being nice to everyone sounds like a virtue, but in reality, it is one of the fastest ways to drain your energy, undermine your influence, and even sabotage your own life without you realizing it. When you give your kindness indiscriminately, you're essentially spreading yourself thin, handing pieces of your attention, time, and emotional investment to people who may never reciprocate or even acknowledge it. At first, it feels good. You get the social approval, the temporary sense of being a good person, the fleeting comfort of thinking you're helping others, but that short-term reward masks a long-term cost. Your energy is finite. Every time you say yes to someone who is manipulative, self-centered, or indifferent, you are subtracting from your capacity to invest in relationships, projects, or goals that actually matter and actually uplift you. Over time, this pattern cultivates exhaustion, resentment, and even invisibility because people begin to expect your availability, to rely on your generosity without any appreciation, and to push boundaries because they sense they can. The harsh truth is that not everyone deserves your kindness, and acting as though they do creates an ecosystem in which you are exploited and taken for granted. It is not cruelty to recognize this. It is clarity. Recognizing who truly deserves your attention transforms kindness from a passive habit into an active, strategic choice, a tool that builds influence, loyalty, and meaningful connection rather than feeding entitlement and dependency. The moment you internalize that being nice to everyone is actually a liability rather than a virtue, you begin to reclaim control over your life. You start investing your energy consciously, understanding that saying no to some is not rejection. It is preservation. It is the first step in building boundaries, in prioritizing yourself, and in becoming the person who is truly unstoppable because you are no longer scattering your influence on people and causes that will never respect or value it. Kindness, wielded with intention, becomes a superpower, but only when it is not diluted by giving it to everyone indiscriminately. And the moment you stop being nice to the wrong people is the moment your life shifts from exhaustion to empowerment. The payoff of learning to redirect your kindness is not just a subtle shift, it's a seismic one, and it starts the moment you realize that your energy is currency, not an unlimited resource. Most people never consider that every yes they give carries a cost, an invisible price tag on their time, focus, and emotional well-being. When you continue being kind to everyone, including those who don't value it, you're unknowingly teaching the world that your boundaries are negotiable, that your energy can be taken for granted, and that your time has no value. But when you consciously start to redirect your kindness, you reclaim that value. You learn to give where it counts, where it's respected, and where it has the potential to create meaningful impact. Suddenly, people start noticing. The energy you invest in yourself, your growth, and the relationships that truly matter begins to compound. Your influence increases not because you are trying harder or doing more, but because you are doing the right things in the right places. Toxic or manipulative people who previously took advantage of your generosity lose access to your energy, and without it, their control diminishes. Meanwhile, genuine people who are worthy of your attention begin to gravitate toward you naturally, drawn by your clarity, your confidence, and the unmistakable aura of someone who respects themselves. The shift also changes how you feel internally. You experience less burnout, less resentment, and more fulfillment, because your energy is no longer scattered across endless demands that bring no return. This is the true payoff. Selective kindness transforms exhaustion into empowerment, weakness into influence, and reactive giving into strategic action. It is a subtle art, but the results are undeniable. Once you understand that kindness is most powerful when intentional, not automatic, you begin to see the world differently, and more importantly, you see yourself differently. You stop being a passive participant in other people's lives and start being the architect of your own energy, influence, and personal power. And in that shift, everything begins to change. Think about your week for a moment. Really pause and reflect, and ask yourself this. Who drained you without giving anything back? Who took your time, your attention, or your energy, leaving you exhausted and resentful? Most people never do this. They rush through life assuming that being nice to everyone is just part of being a good person. But this kind of automatic kindness is a trap. The engagement spark here is that self-reflection forces you to confront a harsh truth. Many of the people you think you're helping are actually depleting you, and you might not even realize it. It's uncomfortable, but discomfort is the signal that change is needed. When you pause and honestly evaluate your interactions, patterns begin to emerge. People who only reach out when they need something, friends or colleagues who consistently take advantage, or casual acquaintances who demand your time but never give support or respect in return. This is where the power of awareness comes in. Recognition is the first step toward reclaiming control over your energy. Once you identify the drainers in your life, you can start to set boundaries, redirect your efforts, and invest your energy in people and projects that genuinely deserve it. The engagement spark is effective because it's personal. It forces the audience to examine their own reality rather than just listening to advice abstractly. It creates a subtle cognitive tension, the discomfort of realizing you've been overgiving without realizing it, while simultaneously opening the door to empowerment. The key here is not to induce guilt, but to foster awareness. Awareness becomes the catalyst for change, the moment where the audience recognizes that kindness, when misapplied, has consequences, and that being strategic with their energy is not just smart, it's essential. By asking them to reflect on specific examples from their own lives, they internalize the lesson far more deeply than any generic warning could convey. It primes them for the next steps, understanding selective kindness, establishing boundaries, and ultimately reclaiming their personal power in a way that is both intentional and transformative, turning everyday interactions into opportunities for growth rather than drain. Kindness is a tool, and like any tool, its effectiveness depends entirely on how and where it is used. When you are kind indiscriminately, you are essentially using a precision instrument as if it were a blunt object. Your energy scatters, your influence dilutes, and your impact diminishes. The moment you begin to treat kindness as a strategic resource rather than an automatic reflex, everything changes. Selective kindness allows you to build loyalty, respect, and trust because people start recognizing that your attention and generosity are not freely given, they are earned and valued. When someone receives your kindness under these conditions, it carries weight. It is meaningful and memorable. Conversely, when you give without discretion, kindness becomes invisible, expected, and even exploited. People stop appreciating it because it is abundant, and toxic individuals learn to manipulate it, testing boundaries, taking advantage, and gradually eroding your energy. Understanding kindness as a tool transforms it from a passive habit into an active form of influence. It is no longer about trying to make everyone happy, but about intentionally shaping relationships and environments in ways that serve both you and the people who genuinely deserve your attention. This perspective also shifts your internal mindset. You no longer feel drained after interactions. Instead, you feel empowered because you know that your generosity is intentional and meaningful. It becomes a currency, a way to signal who matters, who respects you, and who is willing to invest in return. Strategic kindness is subtle but immensely powerful because it redefines the balance of energy in your relationships. People notice when your kindness is deliberate. They respect it, they value it, and they are less likely to take it for granted. In short, kindness stops being a liability and becomes an asset, one that amplifies your influence and preserves your mental and emotional well-being. The shift from indiscriminate to selective kindness is not merely a habit change. It is a transformation in how you perceive yourself, how others perceive you, and how effectively you navigate your personal and professional life. Once you see kindness as a tool, you stop scattering your power and start wielding it. Constantly being available, agreeable, and helpful to everyone comes at a cost that most people fail to see until it's too late. Overgiving without discretion slowly erodes your energy, leaving you physically drained, emotionally depleted, and mentally exhausted, all while others continue their lives largely unaffected. This is what I call the energy drain effect, and it's insidious because it disguises itself as virtue. You might feel good in the moment, pleased that you helped, flattered that someone relied on you, but beneath that satisfaction lies a slow, cumulative toll. Your focus fragments, your priorities get buried under the endless demands of people who often neither respect nor appreciate your efforts, and your personal goals begin to suffer. People start expecting your availability as a given, testing boundaries without hesitation, unconsciously or deliberately assuming that your time and energy are infinite. This is particularly dangerous because, over time, it fosters resentment, both internal and external. Internally, you feel irritated, frustrated, and guilty for wanting to protect yourself. Externally, people sense your exhaustion, but often interpret it as weakness, giving them permission to push harder. The irony is that your generosity, which is supposed to strengthen your relationships and your influence, ends up weakening your position. You become invisible in the sense that your contributions are taken for granted, your limits ignored, and your presence undervalued. The more you overextend, the less people notice or appreciate what you actually do. Recognizing the energy drain effect is the first step toward reclaiming control. By becoming conscious of how, when, and to whom you give your time and emotional effort, you stop depleting yourself and start using your energy intentionally. You preserve your mental clarity, maintain your emotional stability, and safeguard your physical stamina. This understanding reframes kindness from an automatic reflex into a conscious strategy, one that allows you to contribute meaningfully without sacrificing your well-being. Energy is finite, and overgiving to everyone guarantees burnout, but directing it with precision protects your power, amplifies your influence, and ensures that your kindness has impact where it truly matters. 6. Some people thrive on your generosity, and this is where indiscriminate kindness becomes dangerous. There are individuals who, consciously or unconsciously, see your willingness to give as an open invitation to manipulate, exploit, or take advantage of you. They are experts at reading signals, identifying those who will overextend themselves for the sake of being nice, and then systematically extracting value without giving anything in return. The moment you treat kindness as unlimited, as something to be spread evenly regardless of context or consequence, you unintentionally create a system where you are a constant supplier and they are perpetual consumers. Manipulative people, toxic colleagues, or even seemingly harmless acquaintances often operate under this logic. If someone is always kind, they can be relied upon to sacrifice their time, attention, or resources, and there will be no pushback. Over time, this creates a pattern of entitlement. They start expecting your kindness as a default, taking it for granted, and escalating their demands because nothing stops them. What's worse is that this exploitation is often invisible at first. You may not even realize the imbalance until your energy is nearly depleted and your patience worn thin. The danger lies not only in the external manipulation, but also in how it shifts your internal experience. You begin to feel drained, resentful, and even guilty for wanting to reclaim boundaries because you've conditioned yourself to give without question. Recognizing this exploitation factor is crucial. Understanding that some people will take advantage if you allow them to is not cynicism. It's clarity. It's the recognition that your energy is finite and that protecting it is not selfish, but strategic. Once you see who truly deserves your kindness and who is draining it, you can begin to redirect your energy to relationships, projects, and endeavors that actually matter, creating a cycle of respect, reciprocity, and empowerment. In short, failing to acknowledge the exploitation factor allows toxic dynamics to flourish, while selective kindness transforms generosity from a liability into a source of influence, respect, and personal power. The moment you stop giving freely to those who exploit you, you regain control over your life, your energy, and ultimately, your future. Saying no is one of the most misunderstood acts in life, often confused with cruelty or selfishness, when in reality, it is the foundation of self-respect and personal power. When you constantly give without limits, the world begins to treat your energy as though it belongs to everyone but you. And over time, this erodes your confidence, your clarity, and your ability to focus on what truly matters. Boundaries are not barriers to kindness. They are the framework that makes kindness meaningful and sustainable. By redefining how you engage with others, by intentionally deciding when to say yes and when to say no, you reclaim authority over your time, your emotions, and your decisions. Every no is a declaration that your energy has value, that your presence is not disposable, and that you will no longer allow others to dictate how you give or whom you serve. This act transforms interactions because it signals to others that you are conscious, deliberate, and selective. And suddenly, your yes becomes powerful, respected, and rare rather than automatic and taken for granted. Establishing boundaries does not create distance in relationships that matter. It clarifies them, filtering out those who only seek to drain you while deepening connections with those who honor and appreciate your contributions. Saying no is also an act of foresight. It preserves your mental and emotional energy for opportunities, people, and projects that align with your goals, values, and growth, rather than scattering your power across endless demands that do not serve you. In essence, boundaries are the armor that protects your potential, while kindness becomes a strategic tool rather than a blind habit. Once you internalize that saying no is a strength, not a weakness, you stop overextending, stop being drained, and start operating from a position of clarity and influence. Your life begins to shift because you are no longer a passive participant in everyone else's agenda. You are now an active architect of your energy, presence, and impact. Boundaries are not restrictions. They are the channel through which your kindness flows with purpose, force, and maximum effect. And in that clarity lies true freedom. When you finally begin to invest your kindness selectively, something remarkable happens. You reclaim your personal power, and life starts responding to that shift in ways you never expected. For too long, giving freely to everyone has left your energy scattered, your focus diluted, and your influence unnoticed. But once you decide that your time, attention, and care are valuable resources to be allocated intentionally, you start attracting people and opportunities that actually deserve them. This is the essence of reclaiming personal power, understanding that your generosity is not a limitless commodity, but a tool that gains meaning and weight when directed purposefully. Suddenly, relationships transform. Those who respect and value you rise to meet your energy, while those who only sought to take without giving begin to fade away naturally, removed by the simple fact that you are no longer a passive participant in their patterns. Your mental clarity sharpens because you are no longer consumed by constant obligations to people who do not matter. Your emotional resilience strengthens because you are no longer bending yourself to fit others' expectations, and your life begins to feel lighter because the invisible drain of indiscriminate giving has been lifted. Reclaiming personal power through selective kindness also creates a ripple effect in how others perceive you. Your influence grows, your presence becomes more commanding, and your yes starts carrying authority rather than being taken for granted. This is the Transformation that occurs when kindness is treated as a conscious choice rather than a default habit. It is not selfish, it is strategic. By directing your energy where it matters, you create a life where respect, loyalty, and meaningful connections are the norm rather than the exception. The moment you stop giving to those who do not deserve it, you reclaim not only your time and energy, but also your confidence, your focus, and your capacity to thrive. Your life stops being dictated by the demands of others and begins to be guided by your own intentions. And in that clarity, power, and freedom, you discover that true kindness is most potent when it is earned, respected, and strategically placed where it can create real impact.